Hey screen printers, it's Ryan here at Ryonet HQ, and we're doing an awesome thing today. We're doing a live print, raising money for an awesome local nonprofit, the Watershed Alliance, which is all focused about water conservation. So Earth Day is tomorrow, so we're kind of celebrating it today, getting a day ahead of it. Hopefully you Earth Day every day, and so excited to do this with the Watershed Alliance and the Ryonet team here. So we are doing a fundraiser. So you can donate either through the YouTube app or the Instagram app. So definitely donate. We have some targets. We'll kind of keep you, apprised on progress as we go. And hopefully we raise a lot of great money for a good cause. Today we're going to be printing on Allmade shirts. So Allmade was awesome to donate our new Recycle Blend shirt, which has amazing water savings. It actually aligns great with the Watershed Alliance because they're all about conservation water and keeping our water clean. But if you don't use the water in the first place, I think the average t-shirt about 700 gallons of water to make, so this is a fraction of that. We just finished the LSA, which is called Life Cycle Assessment. Haven't actually seen that yet, but we are really excited to actually release that data and show how much water it saves. I know our Tri-Blend saves like 400 gallons of water, so it's actually more than that because it's all recycled materials versus the Tri-Blend, which is just half recycled materials. We're going to be using our pitch black water-based ink today. We're going to be putting a little bit of warp drive in it because we don't have a huge conveyor dryer up in the studio setup, and have a lot of fun. Print some shirts, raise some money. So thanks for tuning in. Feel free to ask questions along the way. I'd love to get you all involved. Where'd my phone go?
I got it.
Oh, you got it. Is it working? No. It's not working.
It was doing a deck. Yeah, a lot more.
Okay, you're gonna get it working? Okay. I was like, wait a minute, somebody stole my phone. All right, so we're going back live on my Instagram, but we're live on YouTube and on Ryonet's Instagram right now. All right, so shall we begin? And then again, feel free to ask questions, comment, get involved. Hopefully you're doing some cool stuff in your shop for Earth Day. I know Allmade has a really cool campaign, Earth Day Every Day with Allmade. So check that out as well. And share that, share what you're doing. I think even like talking about this and raising money creates awareness in my own life. Like I'm like walking around my house and I'm thinking like, hey, how can we be more responsible in this way? How can we reuse this product and not, throw it away? Or how can we recycle a little bit better? Like we RV a lot, and a lot of RV places don't have recycling bins. So we've got special bins now that we take home and we put in our recycling. So just little things like that create a big difference. All right, so let's start with the live print. So break it down. First of all, we're going to mix our inks. We're going to be using Green Galaxy Pitch Black. Now, water-based inks are not necessarily eco-friendly, I will tell you that. Because if you use them the wrong way, they can actually be less friendly for the environment because they can be wasted. For instance, if you're using discharge and you mix way too much discharge up and you have to throw like a half gallon of ink away, that's not eco-friendly. So we're going to talk about using water-based inks the right way, and we're also going to talk about why to use water-based inks. So this is the shirt that we're printing on today. This shirt is the new Recycle Blend, currently on sale. It's made from 50% recycled water bottles, and 50% recycled t-shirt scraps. So when a shirt's cut on the cutting floor, a lot of that shirt, only about when you're using a side seam shirt, so you're cutting this out to get that nice fashion fit, versus a tubular, which can warp and kind of sway. So all of the Allmade shirts are side seam. Most of the fashion brands have side seam shirts, and you actually only use about between 80 and 82, maybe 85% of the fabric. That means 20% of that fabric is going to the cutting floor because you're cutting around it to get that nice cut. Sleeve cuts, obviously. On a tubular shirt, you actually use a lot more. So even though tubular shirts don't fit as good and they kind of wear differently, they don't last as long, they actually use more fabric. It's about 90-92% that a tubular shirt uses. But what we do now with so we're partnered with Samar on the Allmade side, and so this shirt is made from Port, this is made from District, it's made from other Allmade shirts. Those cutting scraps, about 20% of the fabric, 20 to 15% of the fabric goes to the cutting floor, and we reconstitute that into fabric. For years, like I would put on a recycled shirt, it would feel like sandpaper just because it's that very, very rough, but this actually has a great printing surface. And the reason why we're using water-based, obviously to kind of align with that story, the Watershed Alliance, water-based, we're gonna be using it in an eco-friendly fashion. It feels great. A lot of people are scared about using water-based, a lot of screen printers. This is a great, just like the perfect example to start with water-based inks. So Light color garment, black ink. You can totally use Plasalt, great, but water-based is gonna feel better. You're going to have an easier time printing it. It's gonna travel, it's gonna sit in the shirt better. And if you print it right, it's gonna last just as long and you're gonna get a much better, softer result with it. So if you have never printed water-based before and you're thinking about printing it, like if you have a job like this, like I know a lot of, white ink on a black shirt, a lot of people print that, but a lot of also people print black ink on light color garments, one color, two colors. That is a perfect place to start with water-based printing. So we're doing the Green Galaxy pitch black on this. And again, since we want this shirt to last a long time and we just have our standard Riley Cure conveyor dryer, this isn't the forced air version. If we had the forced air version, we wouldn't have to use this, but we are gonna be using a little bit of warp drive. And just to make sure that we are being responsible, I'm not gonna mix the whole ink container, so I'm gonna step out. I'm gonna use this smaller ink container right here. We put about 5% warp drive in. So this is 47 grams. We need to clear or zero that scale. And then I'm just gonna mix up a little bit of ink. I think we're printing about 36, 40, 48 shirts, 36 shirts? 40 shirts. So we're not gonna need a lot of ink. So I'll start with like maybe 150 grams. Just throw that into the scale. And if you haven't used pitch black, it is a great water-based ink because it also stays wet in the screen. And again, if you're, I'm actually, let's see, yeah, 150. Prints a lot differently than Plastisol. But we're gonna be using a 156 mesh screen today. You could go higher, but because we're live printing and we want this to go relatively fast, we're using a kind of a medium mesh in order to allow me to only pass twice. Maybe if I was using a 230, maybe pass 2 times or 3 times. Typically with water-based ink, you do want to pass twice. If you're using a thin thread, it will actually work a little bit better, but this is just our standard mesh. This is the Saudi High-Tech mesh that we use on these screens. Okay, so I'm gonna zero this out, so 150. So I get quick math, that's about 7 grams of warp drive. Take the lid off. Now warp drive is essentially a catalyst that allows this ink, as long as it's dry to the touch, it will set in about 24 hours. So I use it all the time, live printing events, in order to make sure that we have a good amount of ink in it. And actually I think it's only, somebody might have to look this up, I think it's only 1%, 1 to 2%. So if you could verify that before I put in more than 1%. I have 1.5% in right now. I think it's just, it's not a lot of ink that we mix in. But I'm kind of confused because I mixed discharge yesterday and that is 5%. So once we verify that, we will mix the rest of this ink up and then throw it on screen. We're using Lee's awesome Easy Grip Squeegee, the black version. Black and green, looks so good. I know Zach Canicorn, if you're watching, this is the cool squeegee flips. I'm not that talented, but we're gonna be using that. And what do we find out? 1.5%, which is perfect. All right, perfect. 1.5%, finish mixing that up right there. And just mix it all around. Once you've mixed it all around, did we fix the phone? No phone. What?
We're trying.
Oh, we're trying, okay. All good. So if we mix it all around, we are good. So I'm gonna get rid of the scale. And that will set over, that's got a pot life of about 24 hours. Meaning that after 24 hours, that catalyst is no longer effective. It doesn't ruin the ink. If you cap the ink, however, it does not ruin the ink. So you can put more into it. You probably only want to do that 1 or 2 times. I've had a live batch that I've used, and out of, like when we go camping, sometimes we do live printing for fun. And I have a live batch of pitch black that I keep putting ink in. It's getting a little chunky, so I would not recommend that you do it a ton of times, but you can, it doesn't ruin, like unlike discharge where it kind of ruins the ink, you can actually reconstitute this ink and put it back in it. Just don't do it more than a few times. All right, so now we're going to just align this print and then we'll do this up. How are we doing on Fundraiser so far?
20.
20 bucks?
20 bucks.
20 bucks? Is that on both platforms or is that?
Across the board.
That's across the board. I think we can do better. I think we can raise more money for water conservation. I think we can. We just started, so. And these shirts are doing good out of the gate. So kind of just aligning this, understanding, is this a collar off, collar on? It looks like we're right just collar on the tip, typically about 3 or 4 inches down. Always want that set up before we start printing. And then obviously we're adjusting a little bit for larger sizes. I really like this function, like especially if you're alive. I was just using a standard squeegee yesterday, and yeah, squeegee fell in the ink, messes up. You're printing water-based ink, ink starts to dry out when you're cleaning the squeegee off. So the fact that the Easy Grip has this awesome mechanism to catch, like it's falling all over the place now, catch that ink is great. Okay, and when you're doing water-based print, you don't need a lot of off contact. This ink really sits nicely into the shirt, so it's not quite, you've got a little bit of off contact there, not quite on contact, but you don't need a lot. I'm not going to load all my ink up. Just put it off there, and then kind of flood it, get it moving. I do like pulling water-based ink a little bit more than pushing it, especially the lighter colors. But I know that's a big conversation. Do you push or pull? But I am going to be pulling today. So I kind of flood back. I flood back when the screen's in the down position. And you do want to typically leave your screen flooded. But if you're moving that ink, I typically don't worry about it a lot, especially if I'm talking. So I'm going to flood it in a second. But yeah, that's the Watershed Alliance logo right there. Yeah, looks pretty good. All right, looking good. So we'll throw that through the conveyor dryer. We got 39 more to go. And we're gonna, again, we're raising money for water conservation. And these little apps, these live prints, are great ways to raise money and then also, you know, draw awareness for good causes like that. All right, do we have any questions yet? We got a few? Shout them out while I print.
Why do you like water-based ink again?
Oh, I like water-based ink because A, you don't need chemicals to clean it up. Actually, my number one reason is the hand feel and the breathability of the, when you're printing on like nice blank, like an Allmade apparel blank that has, it fits, you know, great. It, you know, it has antimicrobial properties to it, at least the Tri-Blend does. You don't want like a slab of ink on there. Now sometimes you do want a slab, like a streetwear shirt, like a heavyweight shirt, streetwear shirt. Yeah, you want a slab of ink on there, but for a shirt like this, you want that ink to really feel good. A lot of times I'm working out or working outside with a shirt, you don't want a big slab on the front. So I love water-based ink for that reason, primarily. And then you also, it's just easier. You don't use chemicals to clean it up, you just clean it up with water. I think if you're using it smartly, I do think, and I know there's debate on this, it is more environmentally friendly in my opinion. But yeah, I've always loved using water-based ink ever since I got my hands on it. Like, I learned actually how to screen print with water-based ink. And back then it was like a speedball iteration, I believe. And we wouldn't, like, it would just air set. So it was like a kind of acrylic water-based that would just air set. And I leave it out to dry. I heard this on a podcast the other day of this guy who started similar to me, like printing water-based ink. You just put it out in the sun and dries, and then you go to the store, the ink like distributor at the time down in Portland, and I got some Union ink, and it was plastisol. I had no idea the difference, but I tried to leave it outside to dry, similar to the guy on the Shirt Show podcast and Cape Shark. It just never dried. And then I tried to put it into my mom's clothes dryer to dry, and then the clothes dryer turned like hot pink because we were printing hot pink. So obviously this type of water-based ink does have to dry, so we are curing it. It cures at 320 degrees, the same as plastisol, except for like the low cure plastisols. But with this warp drive in it, it just gets a lot more friendly to print. So that's why when I'm doing live prints, A, I like the water-based ink because it's easier to clean up, and B, using that warp drive, I don't have to worry about like it not working. So, all right, printing good. What's the next question?
Are you flooding to fill the stencil so you can see it before you pull?
I'm flooding to keep the stencil wet. So I think that you load the stencil with a medium mesh like this. You don't really need to flood to load the stencil. It's just making sure that that stencil's not drying out. It's not hot in here, and it's not like, you know, I'm not like stepping away. So I'm not super worried about it. If it was warmer in here, or if I was stepping away for a period of time, I would leave the screen flooded like that. And I like to leave the screen flooded like this. I don't know if we can switch to the overhead view. Overhead view coming up. I like to leave it flooded like this where you're not seeing the image underneath, because if you're seeing the image underneath, you're not really, and we need a little bit more ink. If you're seeing the image underneath, I don't think you're leaving as big of an ink deposit, so it will start to dry out. So if you're flooding for drying purposes, then using a flood where you're, you know, flooding pretty heavy, I would not recommend. So kind of skim across. So that's, I would say, a little bit of a heavy flood. Again, this is a lower mesh. We could be printing through a 230 easily with this ink past even a 305. So since it's a lower mesh, we don't really need to flood it that much because it's, the mesh is like letting the ink through very easily. All right, there we go. 3 down, like 10% of the way in. I'm gonna maybe make this pile a little closer. All right, what's the next question?
What happens when you don't leave the screen flooded?
If you don't leave the screen flooded, it can dry out. So if it dries out, really easy to fix with water base, you fix it with water. So I typically create, like if I'm doing a live event or a long print run, just have a spray bottle handy, or a paper towel, or a junk shirt. More eco-friendly way is a junk shirt, because we always have those around, and sometimes not available on a live print. But if you just have a shirt, you know, kind of wipe out the stuck area, and it comes right out and reconstitutes, and you can start printing again. So very easy to fix if you need to. Okay, we're going to go a little faster. What's the next question?
Why do you like live screen printing?
Oh, live screen printing is like the funnest thing because it's so engaging. We were actually with the Allmade team yesterday doing a live print at Sanmar, and Sanmar's been in business for like 50 years, and their average team member has been there a long time. But they sell t-shirts for a living, and they're like coming over like, this is so awesome. You know, how does this work? A lot of them that have literally been selling or in the t-shirt industry for years have never seen the printing process. So A, I think it's engaging, and B, it's a great way to promote your business and set your customer apart, because they're engaging with their customer base. You're promoting what you do to other people, and it's a great way to do a print job. Like, it's advertising you get paid for. And just so engaging. So in every chance that we get to do a live print to show Allmade products, we try to do that, whether that's a trade show, whether that's collaboration, maybe at an RV show, or I've live printed at a campground, live printed in Haiti, live printed in Honduras. Where we actually make this, we were setting up a new factory in Honduras, and where we make this shirt at, we were down there with the Allmade crew to audit the factory and to make sure everything's cool with it. No one that has been making t-shirts ever saw what happened to the t-shirt. And so there was like 400 people there. We weren't able to live print with every person, but we live printed about 20 shirts with people that had birthdays that month. And it was so awesome to kind of see that design come to life, and to see, we're just doing a simple Allmade logo. See, like, okay, I've been sewing in this tag for like a year. I have no idea what it means, what happens to the shirt, and to see that kind of come to life and kind of create that connection. As decorators or as screen printers, we get to see that every time. But you know, most shirts that are sold in the industry and main industry, people that touch that don't get to see that process. And so when they get to see that process, it kind of creates those connections, and people respect a lot more about the front end of the process, whether they're in the front end of the manufacturing system, like somebody sewing the shirt, or whether they're in the back end, like somebody wearing the shirt. So I think it just a great education and great way to kind of engage with your audience is why I like it. All right, next question. I love the Riley 150. We got the pleasure we had a more complicated print yesterday. It was a 2-color print that had some pretty tight registration. And so, you know, most shirts that are sold in the industry and main industry, people that touch that don't get to see that process. And so when they get to see that process, it kind of creates those connections, and people respect a lot more about the front end of the process, whether they're in the front end of the manufacturing system, like somebody sewing the shirt, or whether they're in the back end, like somebody wearing the shirt. So I think it just a great education and great way to kind of engage with your audience is why I like it. All right, next question.
What impressed you like to use the live printing?
called up the Ryonet team, and I was like, hey, we have an extra Riley 250 we can use. And so we hauled the Riley 250 up there, and I will say that with the micro registration, it's great because we had to register that job. It's a lot heavier, so you know, a little bit bigger car to take it in, a little bit more muscle to get it in and out, but it's got wheels on it, so it was easy to get, you know, to move around once we were on the ground. So I have a 150, and the Allmade crate has a 150 that we take to trade shows. So we have two 150s, but it was really nice to use the 250. I would say, I know Opaque Screen Printing is one of our good customers. They have a 250 they're taking up to Mount Hood and doing an Earth Day event tomorrow. So if you're snowboarding tomorrow at Mount Hood, stop by and grab an Allmade shirt and see a live print come to life. They have a 250, so that way they can roll it around. We're doing something with the food bank coming up. They have a 250 as well. So I think between those two presses, you know, if you're doing a more complex print, definitely the 250 is the way to go. But with live prints, it is easier to do simple one color stuff, especially just to make it easier. But people, when you get that 2 color, 3 color, 4 color stuff going on, it does set you apart. And you can charge a little bit more for it, of course. So yeah, what are we at fundraiser wise? 65. Okay, let's go. Let's go. And I think we got my live back on. So, Jamie, any questions coming on or comments coming on Instagram?
Yeah, everybody's asking when you're going to write that new edition for the Made to Make It book.
Are they really? The Made to Make It book, new edition. Okay, so who was the first person to ask that question? All right, well, we are working on it. So I just actually happened to bring a couple copies of Made to Make It. So first 3 comments in the Instagram feed, send a version of this too. If you don't have one, if you already have one, then great. But like, we actually started another business that kind of focuses on development education. We do all the apparel testing and development for Sanmar, Bella Canvas, Allmade apparel. Obviously, it was with Sanmar. We started with Allmade because Allmade was made for screen printers by screen printers, kind of right here downstairs at Ryonet. And we tested every single fabric before we got it out. But when we started to like go faster and add more fabrics, some of the fabrics didn't get tested the right way. And so we actually created processes at a company that started with Brett Bowden and Tom Davenport down in Texas called Made Lab, and we do a lot of education down there as well, kind of a wide variety of education. We have screen printing basic classes, but we also have like more advanced classes and embroidery classes and all sorts of stuff. So anyway, we happened to name that business Made Lab, and this book's called Made to Make It. So we are working on a new book version that has a little bit more updated information, kind of a 2.0 of that, or version 2. Or I know one of my favorite books in business is the E-Myth, and they had this like E-Myth. It was written, I think, in the 80s or maybe even the 70s. It was written a while ago. And when he launched it, when I read it, it's called the E-Myth Revisited. If you haven't read that book, definitely check it out. Great book to read for small business and scaling business. But yeah, we are working on it. Great question. All right, what's up next?
How does it work with multiple colors using water-based ink when you touch it? Does it overlap? Would it not show through the ink?
Okay, so the question is how does it work with multiple colors when you're using water-based ink when it's touching? So on a light color design, that's actually one of the reasons why I prefer water-based ink, is because when you're printing light colored shirts, water-based prints wet on wet phenomenally. When you get on dark and you have to do a white underbase, water-based actually becomes much harder. So with this situation, we literally could just line it up. When I'm lining the shirt up, I would probably add a flash just to make sure that we're not, out of alignment or something like that. But once you're lined up, you can just wet on wet print, go to town, even if they're touching butt-to-butt registration. If they're blending, water-based inks blend really well together, like if you're blending halftones or something like that. However, if you're going on a black shirt with a white base, then you actually typically have to flash a lot more. Most of the time between every color, if you're a spot color like an athletic print, if you're doing gradients, you don't have to flash as much. especially if you keep your platens a little bit warmer. But yeah, it actually gets a lot more difficult to print when you are on darker garments. So with screen printing, there's tools for I love the squeegee, by the way. With screen printing, there's tools for the trade, and I think water-based is a great tool. It doesn't fix, even your basic tools, your best tools in a workshop. You can't just have one tool. So, for instance, like F&, ink works great going on dark garments when you're doing like, stuff that has some dye migration issues because it's low cure. So it's like every different tool in our screen printing portfolio is good for something. All right, what else? What other comments do we have come through or questions?
Does water-based ink work well in polyester garments?
So half of this shirt's polyester. And I think that's another misinformed thing. Like, just because something has polyester doesn't mean that it has issues. Like when polyester is not dyed or dope dyed, it's fine. You typically print on it. The bonding is not much different at all than cotton or natural fibers. So on light garments, no problem. And again, water-based ink, like what we're printing right now, works great on light garments in general, just because of the hand feel softness. However, when you get to dark garments, then we got to understand the garment construction. So take a look at a couple different shirts. Maybe I'll pull one from over here. So this is the Allmade Space Black. So this is 50% polyester, recycled polyester. This Space Black shirt is dyed in a way where we do dye the polyester. It's dope dyed. Whoop. Okay, sorry. Okay, cool. So this is a Space Black shirt. We do dope dye or dye the polyester, so it goes through two dye processes. One for the black or the light gray for the cotton and the modal, which are natural fibers and dye with the same chemistry, and then one for the polyester. But the way this polyester is dyed is we dye it a very light gray, so it doesn't have dye migration issues. So even though it is dyed, it's dyed without issues, and it can discharge very well as well because the light polyester gray is not super dark. However, like if we went with, this is a 100% organic cotton shirt, but if we do have a 100% black Allmade tri-blend that's dope dye black, that actually has horrible dye migration issues because you're dyeing the polyester black. When you print white ink on it, if that white ink is not a very low cure white ink, or if it does not have a blocker underbase, then you're gonna have that pigment, that dye coming through the base layer of ink, and it's going to turn gray or red or whatever the color of the shirt is. So in that scenario, you would use Gamma Blocker Black if you're printing water-based ink. And that's a carbon-based ink. And there's also plastisol version of that as well. So you can use that when you're printing on dyed polyester garments. But I would really understand the construction of your polyester. And there's actually a dye migration test that you can do if you use a curable or non-curable reducer or a plasticizer. You just put a dot of ink on your garment. Typically use the underside of the garment so you don't ruin the garment. And you put a dot of ink on it. You put a white piece of cotton on top with a little bit of plasticizer in that. And then you put it underneath the heat press for like 10 seconds, 320 degrees. And that's gonna tell you if it has dye migration issues, it's gonna come through that cotton. And if it's a black shirt that has dye migration issues, you're gonna have a black spot on that shirt. So you can easily tell if that shirt's gonna have issues. So I'd really understand the construction of your polyester because not all polyester has issues. For instance, this does not have issues. And also black ink or dark inks are not gonna have dye migration issues anyway. So if you're on a red polyester shirt, you can print this ink all day long. You're not gonna have any issues with it. Great questions so far. Keep them coming.
Is there a low cure water-based ink?
There is well, that's what we're using warp drive for. So to my knowledge, most inks cure at that temperature. Maybe there's low cure HSA inks, but you always have catalyst options to make them low cure. And warp drive is what we're using today. And that only makes them low cure. That makes them kind of setups for live printing events. I could just be using a flash dryer. Right now we're using a conveyor dryer to go faster, but we could just be using a flash dryer and it would not have any issues at all once it's cured. Now, I will say that we've done classes. We did a class with pigskins and pigtails, and we used warp drive in all of our inks. And we told everyone at the class, don't wash your shirts, but everyone was so excited, and like, I don't know why, like one lady went back and she like washed all her shirts and they all washed out because it did not sit for 24 hours. And that was a bummer because all of her shirts, she was bummed out. But that is the one caveat. So either, obviously you're shipping a shirt that has warp drive in it, it's gonna take at least a day to ship, it'll be fine. But if you are doing a live event, just say, hey, don't go home and wash your shirt for a day. Good question. Where are we at fundraiser-wise so far?
65 on YouTube, 30 on it, so we're almost at
Almost at 100, okay.
blow right through.
Okay, we're gonna go through, I think, did we set a goal?
Yeah, the goal on Instagram is 100.
Okay, we gotta hit that. We're gonna blast through that. What's the goal? Did we set a goal on YouTube?
Last time we hit 300.
We hit 300 last time and it's Earth Day. We gotta do better than that. I'm gonna keep printing shirts until we hit that goal. So, I mean, who doesn't want clean water? I've been to areas of the world that does not have clean water, and it's really sad. I think Allmade didn't necessarily start as a eco-friendly shirt line. In fact, our first cotton was just a normal, which we would refer to now as it's like chemical cotton or just conventional cotton, I guess is a more friendly word for it. It was just a normal cotton shirt. It was US cotton, but it was just normal cotton. And it wasn't until like we went to Haiti and we saw like what happens to an environment when people don't have the resources or it's not high on the like priority list to take care of, because priority number one is feeding and getting work and taking care of your family. And if you can't do that on a regular basis, having the resources to take care of trash and having the resources to take care of the environment becomes very, very low. And the water there, the quality is like horrible, plastic all in it. Every single riverbank that I saw had like literally garment scraps coming out of it because there's so much like apparel that is just donated and then thrown away to developing countries and areas of the world, which is just really sad to see. So that was one of the things that we wanted to do, is like create a good quality shirt, which a good quality shirt and a good quality print in itself is sustainable, because the most sustainable shirt, no matter how it's made, the biggest impact of a shirt, like I think it's 80%, depending on the shirt, because a lot of like an Allmade shirt has a much lower impact like life cycle in the manufacturing process. But no matter how a shirt's made, even if it's made in like not a super eco-friendly way, the biggest environmental impact is the lifespan after it's printed. So that means how long does it last? How long does somebody wear it before it becomes unwearable? Or they say this design sucks, or this print feels like crap, and then throw it away. Or donate it, which then, like I was explaining, about 80% of the shirts that get donated end up in a landfill somewhere, or in a river or in the ocean, because they're not wearable. Nobody wants to wear a shirt that somebody didn't want to wear in the first place. So, good questions. All right, what other questions do we have?
More t-shirt questions. What is dope dyeing?
Dope dyeing. So, testing my knowledge here. I refer to dope dyeing as polyester, or the type of dye process that is used for synthetic fibers like polyester. So and I actually heard that term like from the t-shirt manufacturers, like, oh yeah, that's dope dyed. And so I think if you Google that or YouTube that, they might have a lot better explanation. But what I refer to that is that's polyester dyed versus natural dyed. Natural dye, when you dye polyester, there's a few ways to dye it, by the way. So when you dye it, when it's extruded, the way polyester is actually made is you take, like this is recycled polyester, so you take a plastic bottle, you chip it down. This is a water bottle. So take this, the only thing that can be recycled is the actual bottle itself, so the label has to come off. all this plastic has to come off, and that gets separated through a series of wash bins. So this all gets ground up, and then by weight, like this label and this plastic are different weights or different, it's very, very easy for them to separate in water or wash baths. So you get down to this clear chip. Once you have this clear chip, then it's melted into pellets. Those pellets are melted into a big shower head like extruder that then like strings out this polyester fiber. Well, in that process, as you're heating that polyester up and it's stringing out, you can add a dye into that and a pigment, and that becomes the color of the polyester. Because the way that's made, that polyester actually has no dye migration issues because it's molecularly inside of the polyester when it's made. When you dye it after the fact, so most polyester is made clear, so it needs to be dyed with whatever color it is. When you dye it after the fact, it takes a much higher temperature to actually set than natural fibers, so it goes through a different process. So a shirt that is black, 50% polyester, 50% cotton, a 50-50 or 60-40 like CVC, has to go through 2 wash baths to get black. Has to go through 1 wash bath for the polyester, has to go through 1 wash bath for the cotton in the shirt. And that is what essentially what we refer to as dope dye.
Question, how is Allmade combating fast fashion?
By moving super slow. Really, like when a shirt's made quickly to go to market quickly, fast, and to be relevant for that time. So most of that is sold through retail. The amount of garments that we print and the type of garments that we print in the decoration industry is not really fast fashion. So the trends, typically slower trends, last longer. And so when you're printing a staple shirt, like a unisex cut side seam, this is not new. You know, American Apparel really kind of defined this shirt, and since then Bella Canvas and Next Level and Allmade Apparel and District, all these brands have their own version of that. And so, you know, it's going to last the test of time. And I don't think we really have to worry much about fast fashion in this industry. What you can do is you can add a fashionable print or a fashionable deco style to that garment to make it relevant for a long period of time. The longer the shirt lasts, the longer it is relevant and the more eco-friendly it is. So, and then another way that we're doing that is like we're making a good quality piece of apparel. And whether that's the way we sew it, the double stitching on it, or whether that's the fibers that it's made from, this shirt's built to last a much longer period of time than something that costs half the price. But whoever asked that question, thank you. All right, where are we at fundraiser wise?
70 on 2.
70 and what?
So 120 total, 50 on Insta.
Okay.
On YouTube.
All right, we're getting there. And this, I'm on mediums right now. So we're going good. What other questions do we have?
Go back to live printing for a bit. What do you cure with wax?
Because of convenience, typically cure with flash dryer. So I'm gonna take over our Riley flash over here, kind of explain how that works. So we do have really awesome small conveyor dryers. Allmade invested in one for our trade show setups, and I actually had some custom made crates for it. So it just pops into a crate. We have a crate that the press pops into. So I have 2 crates that we just roll around. They have huge casters on it. It was about a $1,500 investment for the crates, but they're awesome. And the press sits on top of it, the dryer sits on top of it right next to it. However, when I'm like traveling or when we're doing something out of the back of the truck or RV or something like that, I typically just use a 150 on a press cart and then take a flash dryer to it. So try to keep the prints super basic, meaning that you're trying to keep your platen a lot cooler. When you're printing white ink, you have to flash between layers and it really heats up the platen a lot. And if you only have one platen to begin with, you start to run into trouble when you're curing. So what I do, like for this instance, would be I'd take this shirt out, I'd set it back on top of the platen like so, and then I just roll this flash dryer underneath it. And remember, because this has warp drive in it, I don't like have to like make sure the ink gets to like 320 degrees. I just let it smoke, and it's awesome because people come over like, what's on fire? And it draws more attention to what you're doing, but it's not smoke, it's just the water evaporating out of the ink. And then once it's dry to the touch, you're good. I hand it to the person and say, don't wash that for 24 hours and go. So we just use a 16 by 16 Riley Flash, you can use a heat press as well. It's a lot slower. You can use a conveyor dryer, but those are the options, and that's how to use it. If you want to go faster, what I typically do is like take some wood crates or something like that stand that the computer's sitting on over there and set it up to the same height of the platen so that I can just take the shirt off, set it here, and then just rotate this flash over that so that I can be printing and curing at the same time. And if you're doing it that way, you can actually go pretty fast. With warp drive and ink, you can print about 120 shirts an hour live printing, even faster. So, nope, I already had that loaded. Great question. As long as you have 110 power, you can typically get the job done, even do it live with a generator or a power inverter. My ink's lasting. I think we made just about the perfect amount of ink here. 150 grams for 40 shirts. Okay, what's the next question?
Okay. People want to see the design a little closer, if you can hold it.
Okay.
To the main camera.
Got it.
All right, question. What do you recommend for smaller printers to do in our towns to do stuff like this?
Question, what do I recommend for smaller printers in your towns to do stuff like this? Well, that is a great question. And I would say, A, have the capability to do it. So if you don't have a live setup, it's not a huge investment, and it's also relevant in your shop. Like a small press like this or a 150, you're gonna be able to do sleeves, you're gonna be able to tags, you're gonna be able to have some 1 colors, 2 colors set up on it while you're printing on your bigger press, and it's great, even if you have an automatic press. So have the ability to do it, and then just get out there and network. Like get a part of your Chamber of Commerce, offer to do a live print for free at the next Chamber of Commerce event. People are gonna be like so stoked that you're giving them a shirt. And you can even like have one of the businesses, like there's always an insurance guy at those events. So have the insurance guy like sponsor it, you know, put him on the sleeve or a custom tag, or give his business card out or her business card out with every shirt that you live print. And if there's 40 businesses at that event, you're probably gonna pick up 4 or 5 clients that want you to do something similar to them. And you're, again, like anytime you're live printing, it's free advertising. So we love it. I love the engagement of it, and we have several customers that have made full-time businesses out of it and do extremely well. But you can also then just go ask like, are you doing an activation? Like Dallas from Opaque Screen Printing, he's up Mount Hood Meadows yesterday. He just approached them. He's like, hey, you're doing this Earth Day event. Do you have a t-shirt vendor? And they're like, no. Like, mind if I come up and do live printing? They're like, yeah. Like, what's the arrangement? So he has to pay like, I think he's donating a percentage of every sale to their nonprofit, but then he gets to keep the rest. So yeah, he's got to take a Saturday and a Sunday and go up to a mountain. But A, okay, so he's getting paid per shirt, and B, he's advertising his business. So how many of those people that are going to be up there have businesses or have schools that need t-shirts? So it's a great way to advertise, and again, he's actually getting paid for it. So I think it's a win-win-win all around. Yeah, if you do pre-print lines, you know, if you have a farmer's market, a flea market that you're, especially as summer's coming up, it has been a brutal winter, by the way. So for all you screen printers out there that have had a hard winter, it literally snowed this week in Washington. It's really hard to sell t-shirts when it's snowing. So it's actually spring. Like, it's gonna be 80 degrees here next week. So excited. But summer is coming. Spring is here, hopefully in other areas of the country as well. And I know my friends in Texas said they turned their air conditioning on, and I told them to go F themselves because we did not, I haven't even thought about that here. So yeah, it's gonna be a good summer, I know. And live printing is a great way to kick that off. All right, what other questions do we have?
What do you find more fulfilling, screen printing itself or teaching others how to screen print?
So I think the magic of screen printing, no matter what your screen printing, is seeing like the design. When I was setting that 2-color design up yesterday at SAMR, getting it dialed in and registering it and seeing it pop, I think that's super magical, and it's very personable, and that's going to happen to each person in a different way, but I always get a kick out of that, like coming to life, seeing that design come to life, just personally. But it's also great to see somebody else experience that for the first time. I think one of the most rewarding events is when we were with the makers of our t-shirts down in Honduras, and they had never seen the process done, and when they saw that design come to life, that they sewed in the tag, you know, hundreds of thousands of tags, literally millions of tags. And when you saw that person that was on that line sewing tags, see that design come to life, the same design that's on the tag that he's sewing, it was like, this connection is like fire in his eyes. It was so cool. And so I think teaching and letting people experience that in a different way is awesome. And it's really, really been cool to see in this industry how many people are helping other people. Like when I got involved and I started, like you could read a book. It was like called How to Print Shirts for Fun and Profit. I hated reading, so I looked at the pictures and I did half the things wrong. I didn't even know what off contact was. I didn't know. I coded the screen with like a goop scoop. So it was horrible as far as learning. And then, but teaching people now, it's like this is a very collaborative industry, which is just awesome to see. So shops teaching other shops, shops helping other shops, just the coolest thing. And like we say, rising tide lifts all ships, and that's true. And now with like this live print and raising money for the Water Alliance, we're going to be having cleaner water the ships sit in, which is also cool. Speaking of, where are we at fundraiser wise?
We are at 90 on YouTube, 50 on Insta.
Okay.
Creeping up there.
Okay, I got a couple more left to go. So, gotta step it up here. Any other good questions?
We got one from Andrew Boyd, who says hi.
Hey, Andrew.
What's a good rule of thumb for placement from the collar?
So, depending on the shirt size, like at least my finger size, 3 to 4 fingers. On a platen like this, try to do collar off as far as your screen setup goes. So meaning that collar is just dripping off the edge of your platen. That's like the preferred way, because that way the screen doesn't interfere with the collar. It's not smashing anything down right there. Obviously for larger shirts, I just take the collar off a little bit more. For smaller shirts, like an extra small shirt, you might have the collar slightly on. So it depends on the shirt size and the design. Hoodies are going to be a little bit, you know, every shirt's a little bit different. So some shirts sit a little bit lower so that if they have something hanging down here, some shirts sit a little bit higher. Tank tops typically sit a little bit lower. So every shirt's a little bit different, but great question.
Here's a good one. Where can I meet you?
Woo, meet. Yeah. If you're ever flying Alaska Airlines, there's a good chance you'll see me. But next we have coming up, I'll be in Texas for a few days beginning of May, just for some client visits and some video work at Main Lab. But the next big event, we have the Rock Fest grand opening in Florida at Rock HQ, and a Main Lab class before that. So it's called our Learn to Rock class, where you're kind of like a screen printing 101, but on rock equipment. That's a great class if you're interested in automated printing. Andrew, I think you're going to be at that one too, because you're getting your first automatic press. So that's going to be a good class. But then after that, on June 2nd, we have a bunch of free classes, a screen making class with our friends at Saudi, a few ink classes, and an awesome like opening event. So come down if you're in the Florida area, you want to fly in for that class. It's going to be a great event. We have a couple things happening in Texas over the summer. We have water-based ink, which hopefully we'll be using this awesome Green Galaxy ink there to do, as well as some other inks. And that water-based ink week is split into 2 series of classes. So we have the Water Basics class. Brett named that one. He's always clever with the name. So that is 2 days, the first 2 days. And that is like intro to water-based. So a lot of the concepts that I'm teaching here is like start with light garments, you know, use this hybrid HSA ink, how to use discharge, how to use HSA. So the basics of water-based, which if you've never printed fundamentally water-based inks, would be great And then we have WB Camp, which is kind of more advanced. And our partners Night Owls, we're going to be doing a digital print with on top a hybrid digital print on top of water-based underbases, and much more complex design, athletic prints on polyester, and some special effects designs with water base. So you can come to just the first part or the last part, you can come to the whole week. And that's happening in mid-July. And then if you're like in the promo world, if you never checked out an ASI show, definitely check out an ASI show. Our Allmade team is going to be at the ASI Chicago show. And then I believe we're having an awesome show here, like the GPX show in Portland, which definitely will be at as well. And I think that's mid-July, remember? So we'll be at that too. And then tons of shows this fall. Fall gets really busy showtime. So there'll be a show in Texas, show in Atlanta, the Printing United show. We're almost done. Almost done.
The Portland show is July 19th through 20th.
Perfect. So that is going to be a very busy weekend. So that water-based camp at Texas, the Portland show, and then right after that is ASI Chicago. Amanda, if you're watching, Amanda's my wife. Sorry. Gonna be gone for like a week. We have a family reunion right in there, I think, actually. So again, if you see me on Alaska Airlines during that time, I'll be on a lot more. All right, what other questions we got?
If you don't have the funds right now to purchase a dryer like we're using, what would be an alternative for someone starting out?
That flash dryer setup that we were talking about there, like obviously I started without a flash dryer. I used a heat gun or the oven, which you can totally do, especially if you're using warp drive. Like a heat gun with a warp drive, like works great. And an oven with a warp drive works great. I've printed like 100 shirts, like even recently at the beginning of COVID, when everything shut down, we printed a bunch of shirts and I just used my dryer and warp drive black ink on a white shirt. Worked great. So as long as the ink dries when you're using warp drive, it will set in 24 hours. Doesn't mix very well with pizza though. Okay, where are we at fundraiser wise?
90 on tube. And they,
Folks,
where are we at on IG? 50.
let's go. I'm gonna have to turn this into like one of those telethons where we're like calling for dollars. Remember those things where like you'd have all these people behind you and like, hey, thanks for your donation to the Water Alliance, Watershed Alliance. I read about them. That was a really cool nonprofit that we chose to get involved with here. Like I grew up in Vancouver and Battleground area, and the waterways were not clean when I grew up. I remember like my mom saying like, you cannot swim in Salmon Creek because it is so polluted. And now like you can swim in Salmon Creek again. So the rehabilitation of going around planting trees and kind of rehabilitating the watersheds around so the rainwater comes out, falls, when you have, it just goes straight into, that was one of the problems with Haiti is like all the greenery and the shrubs have all been like harvested off and either turned to farmland or like used for firewood, which is the main source of heat and fuel down there. And so you just had like nothing to protect the waterways, and then they were just all brown, and then you have shirts and plastic on top of that would made it like horrible. So with companies like or nonprofits like this that are doing that kind of work, it makes a huge difference. So definitely, we're almost there. Let's go for at least 200.
A couple of squeegee questions.
Okay.
What's the durometer on your squeegee?
This durometer is 70 durometer, which is like our go-to durometer. I believe, right? 70 durometer. I love 70 durometer squeegees. My more advanced printing friends at MadeLab are much bigger fans, like especially when you get to automatic printing or specialty printing of triple durometer squeegees, which for specific applications I think do work a lot better. But for live printing like this, it's cost effective and definitely gets the job done. That is our last shirt. There we go. That went pretty fast. We're at time-wise, about an hour into it. So, okay, let's see if we can drum up a few last donations.
We're up to 130 on tube.
Oh wow! So we're over 200 then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah? Where are we at on Instagram?
We're at 180.
180. Okay, let's get at least to 200. Yeah, I'll clean the screen while.
We got more questions.
Oh, we got more questions. Yay!
Do you know any print shops that use 2 underbases as a standard?
Do I know any print shops that use 2 underbases as a standard? So I think one of the best print shops out there when it comes to water-based printing is Colin over at Lone Mountain. He's an all water-based shop, prints for really high-end brands, helped us teach that advanced water-based camp last year. And we did a 1-color print with 6 underbases. So most of the Nike, Under Armour, Adidas shirts that you see out there that feel like look so great, they could have up, with the 1-color design, they could have up to 8 screens for 1 color. So that's why you see those oval presses, and why I'm talking about like flashing becomes a lot more important with larger print runs or darker colored shirts, specifically polyester shirts, is because a 1-color print could have 2 to 3 blocker bases. It could have a different blends of white or the same blend of white with 3 to 4 different screens on top of it. So yeah, I know a lot of printers, and overseas you see that a lot more, that use a lot more than one base.
Next question, how much ink is too much ink on the screen?
So first of all, let's cover screen mesh. So take a look at this platen right here. Good rule of thumb, and this is different for every garment. So if we do an overhead shot, I'm going to take a look at this right here. I can actually see a little tiny bit of ink on the platen. That means I'm too low to screen mesh, because I'm pressing too hard, too many ink strokes. Maybe that first one, when I hit 3 times when I was loading the shirt, it flooded through the ink, flooded through the t-shirt onto the platen. If you ever can see ink on your platen, it means you're probably using too much ink, probably using too low of a mesh. Like I kind of mentioned before, this 156 made it super easy for a live print because we're done. But if I was doing this in production to kind of regulate the ink a lot more, I'd probably use like a 196 or 200, and that would hold the ink up and we wouldn't have that weight. That's just wasted ink. I mean, this platen paper doesn't want any ink on it. It's supposed to be on the shirt. So that is a good tail sign if you're using too much ink through too low of mesh. But I think if you're scraping a lot of ink out at the end of a print job, I try to keep the ink level low when I'm live printing. Unless it's really hot and you just need a lot of ink to dwell on the screen so it doesn't dry out, because that means it's easier to clean up. So I don't think there's a rule of thumb. If it spills over the edge of your screen, then it's definitely too much. All right.
When you push the squeegee, are you using more palm than fingers?
Well, with this freaking awesome Easy Grip, Lee Stewart edition, I'm just like pushing it or pulling it, I guess, and it works great. Like the amount of the ergo friendliness of this squeegee is fantastic. Mel, I think during PPI show, she printed 1,800 shirts manually over the course of 3 days, and she had like blisters all over her hands. She's a puller too. So when I'm using a squeegee, let me see, more palm or fingers. Yeah, definitely, I don't know, like right in here, getting a lot of pressure down, not a lot of pressure up here. Yep, that's your answer. Good one. As we're cleaning up, okay, where are we at? Did we make it?
We're so close.
We're
at 195.
Oh, 195, we're so close. Let's go. And we did 200 last time or 300?
We did 300.
Oh. All right, we can do more. Let's go. We're almost done. But we're doing great. Thank you, everyone who donated. And thank you, Allmade.
It was after the fact, too.
Oh, it was after the fact.
Keep donating.
Oh, you can keep donating because this is live for like 30 days.
Yeah, but I don't want to quit until we hit at least 200.
Yeah, we're not quitting.
$5 more. Who can do it?
Yeah, we're not quitting. We're going for at least 200, if not more. Depends on how long it takes. All right, let's see my ink judge. So I think I could have gone like maybe, that's a pretty good, but again, I actually can, because this doesn't have a lot of warp drive into it. I don't know, is Colin listening? Because if I put this back in the can, he's getting really mad at me. But I'm definitely not like that. Or like at the lab, I'm not allowed to print at the lab or mix inks because I make too much of a mess. But if this was in my trailer, I would totally just throw this back in the ink container, because I'm reusing it for live printing anyway, so. But yeah, I think I did a pretty good job. We probably could have gone with like maybe 120, but we might have ran out of ink in that well. So pretty decent ink mixing there. Again, if you're, what was that?
Lee's on.
Oh, Lee's on. What's up, Lee? Thanks for the awesome squeegee.
Seeing you use it is the coolest thing.
I got my hands on your handles. In a good way. All right. What other final questions do we have as we wrap up?
Yeah, we got 2. Do you
Oh, dude, Lee. Sorry to cut you off.
Nope.
That press. Woo! I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything. Ah, crap. Never mind. Delete that part. Anyway.
Okay. Question. Do you recommend a dip tank for a basement shop or bedroom shop? Will the fumes be too much?
A dip tank?
Yeah.
I think dip tank doesn't have, from what I've seen, I've been in some pretty small dark rooms. Yeah, I think it works great. One thing that I would invest in if you're starting to do a lot of screens is a filtration system. As we're talking about Earth Day and being eco-friendly in your shop, don't use too much ink. Filtration system is like huge when you're talking about clean water because it's filtering out all those big particles and it's keeping your drains. Like I was talking to Brandon, my brother-in-law, president of Ryonet, about like things that we could do to add value as we go see shops with the Ryonet team. It was like that filter is huge, but you could do like a drain audit where you like get one of like those little like plumber scopes and like scope it down the drain. You could see. Like print shops have to spend, like I know like a couple automatic print shops that have to spend $20,000, $30,000 to have their drains redone because they get stuck full of stuff.
We have some B-roll up of all of a filtration unit of all the gunk that's going on right now.
Oh, right now?
It's just up there, yeah.
Yeah, it is horrible. Like if you don't have that filter system. So if you're a small shop and you can't afford a filter system, use old screen mesh. You know, we actually use screens we use a 156, 125, and a 110, I believe, in that filter system. You can use that to just start, or you can get some filter product to kind of create your own. Even just using like a settling tank. So out of your washout sink or your washout area, you have one tank, and at the top of that tank, you have a little spout that kicks off into another tank. That in itself will save a lot of stuff from going down the drain. So definitely in the theme of Earth Day and the Watershed Alliance, filter your screen cleaning process. Did we do it?
Oh yeah, we got 171 on YouTube. We're still sitting at 50, so we're over.
We're over 200. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
That's a lot of trees and water.
That's a lot of clean water that we got going on. Thank you for Allmade for donating, Mel and Laurel for getting these shirts over. The recycled blend, it's our most affordable Allmade shirt. If you have not printed on it yet, definitely check it out at Sanmar. It's on sale currently for only $3.99 wholesale price, which is, I was talking to one of my friends who's in a business group with me, and he's like, man, I hope you don't mind, but I want to run this t-shirt order I just did with you by. And I was like, cool, like, where'd you get it done? He's like, I got it done at this print shop in Santa Monica, California. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. I looked it up. They're a Ryonet customer. I was like, that's sweet. Thank you for using somebody local. And I was like, what did you print on? He's like, I printed on this no-name shirt. I'm not going to mention the name. Be nice. But I was like, oh, do you care about the environment? And he's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, okay, cool. Let me show you what's up. And I showed him how much water and like chemicals and everything it would save if he went with an Allmade product. And he ended up switching his order up because he was like, I had no idea, which was cool to see. So that recycle blend, we're going to have an impact study coming out on it soon, but saves tons of water. And it's actually carbon negative to create because we're reusing product that's already been created. So, all right, I think I cleaned up. I didn't make a mess successfully. We had a successful live print. We raised over $200. We want to keep donating on the links, and we'll be resharing this with stories. We gave 3 books away, I believe. We had comments come in for those, so I'll DM you afterwards, get your address information. And yeah, thank you guys for having me out. This has been a great event. Hopefully you all like your t-shirts. Watershed Alliance, thanks for doing good work. So anything we should cover before we wrap up? Oh, read this. You guys realize that I'm not good at reading. I'm dyslexic. So if I say, okay, I can do it. No, I'm just joking. So, okay. Oh yeah, next week we're going to be actually taking these shirts down to the Watershed Alliance. So stay tuned for that. And subscribe, check out, follow Allmade, check out the new stuff coming from Ryonet. And thank you all for watching. Have a great Earth Day. Do better. Save the planet. Woo!